Hi all, this is Skate, and this is the AC-1 Sentinel. This is known for two things. One, its armor, and two, its package. Yeah, the machine gun port is heavily armored on this, but the problem with heavily armoring a machine gun port, it just looks a little bit inappropriate. I'm well aware this is childish, by the way, but I can't not see a schlong right on the front of that tank. I've seen the AC Sentinel in real life as well, and it's even more prominent. In fact, if you watch the Inside the Chieftain's Hatch, where he covers the AC-1 Sentinel, he can't comment, or can't not comment on it himself. But regardless, the tank itself, well, aside from that on the front, it is a very good tank. You've got the AC-1 Sentinel, and you've got the AC-4 Sentinel at tier 6. Now they have the same hull. The difference being is this has the same armor 2 tiers lower. It may not sound like an awful lot, but 65mm of armor on the front, 50 on the side, and 65 on the rear, a tier 4, and with all that angling and sloping, makes this a very tough tank from the front, and from the back, and from the side. And if I'm going to play tier 4, this is the tank I will go to, just because it's just downright hysterical. It only does 45 alpha average with its gun. But with its loadout, 2.4 second reload, it can still put out some serious damage while bouncing an awful lot of return shots. So I will cover the armor momentarily, I just want to run through my equipment loadouts first. So, first up, I run, consumables wise, a multi-purpose restoration kit, the repair kit, and adrenaline. Provisions, you've only got 3 choices, take all 3. And then on an ammunition front, I run 70 AP and 30 APCR, and I run no HE. With a pen of 9 to 15, there's just no point. And then onto the equipment. I run a rammer, vents, and coated optics. Except for coated optics, another good viable option will be the toolkit. Or believe it or not, even the spore liner, because when people get fed up of not being able to penetrate you, they're going to start lobbing HE shells at you. And in this thing, derp guns concern me more than anything else. High probability, unless it's a high penetration tank destroyer firing at you, you're going to bounce a lot of things if you're angling and moving. But anything with a big caliber gun who's just launching HE at you is going to do splash damage. So to reduce that, you can use a spore liner. I like the coated optics because I like to start firing as soon as I see something, and obviously the sooner I see it, the bigger the advantage I've got to start firing. Couple that with the fact of in this tank, you never hang back, you are always pushing. So both of those options are very viable and a very good choice. Okay, so I said the armor's good. Well, tier 6, the armor's okay. Put that same tier tank at tier 4 and it's hysterical. Look, it's mostly red. The places you want to shoot this tank are next to the gun mantlet, and that's pretty much it, or load some APCR. If you're firing APCR, your best bet is to shoot at the transmission housing at the very front lower hull, in the flattest bit you can find. Either that or next to the mantlet, as we mentioned. Because as you can see, when you are angled like this, the whole damn tank is red. We are firing at this using a tier 4 light Covenanter. Now, the reality is most things I come across when I am in tier 4 in one of these things is light tanks, or medium tanks, and the occasional tank destroyer. Now the armor, as I mentioned, is fantastic, but it is riddled with weak spots. If we have a look at the armor on this thing using the Type 5 keyhole, which has good penetration, you'll see that it has got those weak spots everywhere. And although it is riddled with those weak spots when you are using something with higher penetration, it's still hard to hit those weak spots if you're moving. So as a result, when I'm using this thing, I will always angle, I will always use as much gun depression as I can, and I will just keep moving non-stop. But we'll have a look using some other tanks. The Lux, tier 4, again, using gun depression and angling, it's still got those weak spots, but it's still hard to hit those weak spots as long as you're moving. B1. Okay, B1's pretty much got no chance of penetrating you from the front. Oh, I clicked China accidentally, but that's the Glacial. And even then, the armor still is quite acceptable against one of them. I didn't say good, I said acceptable. But let's have a look at some other tier 4s. Again, there's the Cove. It's got no chance. Matilda's got good penetration on its gun. It's got very good penetration. And even so, it's going to struggle to penetrate this thing unless it's aiming its shots in the right place. And then if we look at the Electo, same situation. We'll have a quick look at a couple of other tanks. Su-85B, good penetration tank. You'll see that, again, that lower transmission, that housing is where you want to be shooting this tank. Because if you shoot it anywhere else, there is a good probability it's going to hit one of those very thick armoured parts. A20, just give up and run away. He's got no chance. Now, two things from that. We were looking at just AP, and some of them were just downright hysterical. And with APCR, they have a better chance of penetrating. But the reality is this thing still has good armor on the front, and it still has very well sloped armor. Which means it's still very hard to pen as long as you keep it moving, because they can't hit weak spots, or they got less chance of hitting weak spots when you're on the move. And then on top of that, I haven't mentioned tier 5. This thing does see tier 5. However, I've played about 50 games in this, and I'd say only about 5 of them I've seen tier 5. Now, I may have got lucky. I probably did get lucky. But 5 out of around 50 games tells me there's a good probability that this thing has favourable matchmaking. Not preferential matchmaking, but favourable, which means it's only going to see tier 5 a certain percentage of the time. Either that, or I am the luckiest person ever. So, look how many bounces we have received already. There was at least 7 by there. And you'll notice the thing I did is I hid that lower transmission. That lower transmission housing, basically the lower plate, the front and the middle of the plate, it's weak to APCR. So when things are firing at me, I will try and use the gun depression if I'm concerned about them penetrating. And pretty much, well, just enjoy the bounces then. You'll notice I angled myself to that tank then, and the only thing which did damage in that circumstance was the BT-7 Art firing HE at me, which is why I said Spall Liner was a good shout. But again, you'll notice I'm not hesitating, I'm not really worried too much about people attacking me. I'm angling my armour to whichever tank I'm shooting at, and I'm literally just driving headfirst towards them. There's a bounce off the rear, and there's the BT-7 Art. Being as we can't see the one in front, let's just go bully him. Again, only 40 average damage, or 45, sorry, but look at it, you're just going to pick people away constantly. And you'll notice I don't really worry about aiming, I literally just use this thing as a pop gun, and I just fire even if I'm on the move. You just keep pressing that fire button, because it is a bully. And yes, I'm aware I can miss numerous amounts of shots, which you will see in the replays. But it keeps you on the move, and it keeps those weak spots from being any sort of concern or problem. And then the key thing to remember here, to me, I find this a highly fun tank to play. And the reason it's fun is quite simply, you're always in the thick of it. You're taking all the damage for your team, you're just charging headfirst into the reds, and you're constantly shooting, you're constantly trying to aim your shots while on the move. Scenarios like this, yeah, it's worth you stopping, trying to line some up. There's a bounce. Again, there's another bounce. It's just hysterical. My armor is angled to both of them, and the reality is they are not going to hit my weak spots from this sort of range. And again, you'll see I am slowing down to try and take some more shots, accurate shots from long range. But close range never, ever, ever sits still. I can guarantee by this point in the video, there's already people down by the comments section saying, Seal Clubber. To you, I say, I don't care. I paid good money for this tank, and as a result, I'm going to play it. I'm not going to buy a tank and then go, well, I'll play a couple of games in it, and then I'm a dirty Seal Clubber if I continue to play games in it. I think the Seal Clubber thing goes a bit too far. I mean, I've spent more of my time, and I've played more games in tier 10 than any other tier. And I've started playing low tiers again recently, and I'm really, really enjoying them. And I actually intend to start putting some more lower tier videos on the channel as well, because let's be fair, there's not a lot of low tier videos on here. You've got the Type 60, or the T-67, sorry, which is previously the T-49. Fantastic tank. Churchill 1, KV-1. There's so many good tanks at lower tiers, which don't really get featured that often, don't get mentioned that often. So yeah, I think it's about time we all start playing a little bit more low tiers. And before anyone does start with the Seal Clubber comments, well, we're just getting everyone ready for the higher tiers. That's my argument. And I can guarantee the first people to jump on the Seal Clubber comment are the same people who will jump onto the bandwagon of there are too many noobs in tier 10. Well, go teach them how to play the game early on. There you go, problem solved. Seriously though, think about it. It sounds like such a simplistic fix, and it probably is. People complain there's too many bad players at higher tiers. That's because they're not coming across loads of good people down at the low tiers, because the people up the top tiers turn around and say, you're a Seal Clubber if you go down the low tiers. So these people aren't learning until much later in the game, because there's no amazing players down at the low tiers, or there are. I'm not going to say there's not. All of us play the occasional lower tier, but there's not enough. If you're down in tier 4 and someone comes across you and you do ludicrous amounts of damage, they're going to go, I want to do that, and they're going to learn. And in theory, they should then learn before they hit the higher tiers. We are talking about new players to the game here. Seriously though, think about it. It does kind of make sense. But in that game we did 1,354 damage, 27,000 credits, which isn't bad. It's not the greatest, but it is only a tier 4 tank. But that got us a first, and we had the steel wall. But we did a lot more damage than the rest of our team. And that's because this thing just goes in head first. That was a major tangent then, by the way, about the Seal Clubbers and the high tiers and the low tier, but now that I'm thinking about it, it does make some form of sense. So let's get on to another replay before I get stuck on that topic for another 20 minutes. But yeah, start playing lower tiers more, guys. You're going to enjoy it an awful lot. I have thoroughly enjoyed playing this tank again, and I have thoroughly enjoyed going back to that Churchill 3 as I mentioned in my last video. Right, back to the AC-1, or schlong tank. Now, as I mentioned, it is very, very, very good at tier 4. When you do see tier 5s, then you need to treat this thing like a second line tank. You need to be hiding, and you need to be firing a lot of APCR. If you come up against heavies, you're not going to penetrate them very well from the front, and you are going to want to work your way around the sides. This tank is actually still pretty mobile considering how well armoured it is, and it has 10 degrees of gun depression. So you'll see I'm charging straight towards the base. I'm trying to put myself in a position where I can use my gun depression and cover that lower front plate again. It's not really that much of a weak spot when you're up against tier 3s. In fact, it's nothing to be concerned about at all. Against other tier 4s though, you do want to be trying to hide it. And you'll see here, we're not doing a lot of damage per shot, but we are literally whittling him away one shot after another. Now I'm in a position now where I can pretty much use the full gun depression, and there's plenty of things to shoot at. He's gone out of the way, but there's the back of a Lux which I can get some shots into, and you'll see I am being peppered at the moment with shots, and I just don't care. That hurt though. That hurt a lot. That was the T-82, and I should have been more careful here. I love the fact half my health went as I was saying, I just don't care. So there gives a perfect example. If you have something like a T-82 pointing its gun at you, either take it out quickly, or make sure you are moving so it can't put those big shots into your weak spots. Saying that, with that gun on the T-82, he's just going to fire a load of HE at you anyway. So your general rule of thumb here is your armour can't be as well relied on against things with big HE guns or high penetration guns. So a general rule of thumb there is if it's a tank destroyer, try not to stick your entire tank out in front of it like I just did. You'll see I'm playing a little bit more cautiously now. I'm only poking out enough to shoot the tank I want to shoot at. These guys over here, I'm not too concerned about them. They're not really going to hurt me that much. If they do, it'll be a little tickle. Now, I haven't got any more shots left on him, so I'm going to reverse back to see if I can get them, and then I make the decision that I want to push forward, and then turn back and shoot at them. Now, the reason I'm doing it this way is because where I'm going right by here, I can get some gun depression, and I have some cover from the wall, and that will obviously help the armour massive amounts, because I'm using some of the gun depression, and I can just take shot after shot after shot while just bouncing shot after shot after shot. So that's why I'm trying to use some gun depression here, because I'm trying to increase the armor thickness angle. If I just poked out and started shooting, my armor wouldn't be as thick. If I've relocated to a position like this, like I said, I'm being really cautious after taking a huge chunk of my health like that. Again, it's just using that gun depression to my advantage. Now, I showed you the Lux can penetrate this tank in various different spots. That Lux at range then couldn't penetrate my weak spots. Quite simply because he couldn't see them. Rather, at this range, he didn't have the accuracy to actually pinpoint those weak spots. Instead, he's spraying at the front of the tank. And at range, he may get 1 or 2 shots to pen, maybe. If he starts firing APCR, a lot more are going to go through. But again, it's not something at range he's really going to do a lot of damage to me. And again, although it is peppered with weak spots, laced, however you want to describe it, it is covered in weak spots. But those weak spots are irrelevant almost as long as you are moving and as long as you are at range, or using the gun depression. There are many ways to negate those weak spots, in other words. Now, the gun on this thing, like I mentioned, it only does 45 average. It does have 78 penetration, by the way, on the standard AP, and it has 121 on the APCR. So, the AP can penetrate a lot of things. If you can't, well, you've got that APCR button. And less than 2.5 seconds per shot means you do a substantial amount of damage as long as you keep that gun firing. In this game, we managed 1,645 damage. We got a first, a high caliber, and again, a steel wall. And then if we look at the team damage compared, and this is where it gets interesting, because at high tiers, it's hard to carry a team who have very little damage. At the lower tiers, it's much easier, especially in a tank like this. I think we did more than the team combined there. Not because the team are bad, some of them might be new, I don't know. I actually don't know the circumstances. They could have been wiped out by the Reds before we even got to look in. To be honest though, the circumstances are irrelevant. There could be 1,000,001 different reasons as to why many of your players on your team got 0 or less than 100 damage, or very, very little damage. The point I'm trying to get at is it's easier to learn to carry at the lower tiers than it is at the higher tiers. And when you have an AC1 Sentinel to do it in, well, it's even easier to learn. Now, this game, I do die, and I do go a little bit too aggressive. But I take an absolute beating as a result, and every gun pretty much focuses me when we hit the town, purely because we're just sat right in the middle of them all. But it means that my entire team can just go and put shots in freely. Well, that's what you hope would happen anyway. But the enemy team is predominantly mediums there, so I have taken the left route to see if I can find any, basically. I think it's fairly obvious to say, as I mentioned, the town already. I gave a spoiler away, didn't I? I think it's fairly obvious to say that they're not going to be here, and we've already reached this mound by here, and there is nobody there. So we're just going to keep pushing, because that's exactly what I mentioned earlier, and that's exactly what I do in this tank. You just keep pushing until you find the Reds, and you sit in their face, and you annoy the hell out of them. Now, going to find the Reds as quickly as possible and sticking your tank in front of their face is one thing. Going smack bang in the middle of the entire Reds, you're just asking to be eaten alive, which is exactly why I have gone the left way. I can angle my tank to 1 or 2 tanks, maybe even 3 if they're all in front of me. Not 7 from all different angles. And that's the exact reason I went left rather than straight to the middle. Now, I've said all that, but in this game, I'm just going to go head first. Because, well, I don't actually intend on going smack bang in the middle of all the Reds, but that's exactly what's going to happen. So you'll see I'm focusing down that medium 3 by there, and I'm just putting shot after shot into him. I'm not really aiming them too well. The important part is just putting them all in. And as we're about to deal with him, which we're going to ignore him and just take him out first. If we don't bounce a shot off the side of him, great. But we do finish him off, and now it's time to deal with him. Now, you can see as soon as we're focusing him, he's backing it up, and he's just like, ah, crap. He just doesn't know what to do. He's like, I can't pen him. And I kind of felt sorry for that cruiser, but then we decided to ignore him because then this B1 came around the corner. Now I loaded the APCR for the front of the B1 just so I could deal with him very quickly because of the circumstance we are in. There are red tanks pretty much all around me, and there is not a lot I can do other than try and gun my way out of it, angle my way out of it, and just fight non-stop. I mean, there's 3 in front of me, and there's 1 right behind me. We're kind of in a lot of trouble here. But we are still putting a lot of damage out. You'll see I've switched back to the AP. There's no point wasting the APCR. I might need it, and it just costs too much money. But I'm taking this guy out first because he's by himself, which means all the reds I want to deal with at this point in time are in front of me. There may be 3 of them. 2 now, it looks like the cruiser's run off. But it means that they're all on one side of me, which I can focus my armor to these guys then without having to worry about that one shooting me in the side. Now we've dealt with those now, and it's time to move because he's just running away again. And it's that DW2 which is going to cause me the most problems, because that gun on the DW2, or the most recent gun they put on it, is very, very good. Previously, the DW2 was nothing to be concerned about. The DW2 now, especially when it fires APCR, has a very, very nasty gun. And we did bounce 1 from the DW2 there, and he is now ignoring us. No, wait, we've shot him, he's looking at us, and he pens us no problem at all that time. Now he's got a longer rate of fire than me, a longer reload than me, so I'm going to get a couple more shots in. I get a bit cocky though, come back out, and he does get 1 more straight through the front of me. I have died, obviously, as a result. But I'm kind of hoping that my team will mop up the rest of them for me. I stuck myself right in the middle. He's on full health by here. Obviously he's been sniping, but he's coming in now. Is he going to do some damage? Come on. There's 1 left. And I'm following this guy in the hope that he's actually going to do something by here. He's done 2 shots, or he killed 2 already. So I was hoping he comes around and finishes the last guy. And if he does, it means we do get a win. Not dead yet. Come on. Just waiting on the reload. There we go. The B1 finished him off. So it was a weird game, but we took all the heat for our team. And what that basically means is, although we died early on, we did 1,600 damage, and we still did way more damage than the rest of our team. Now there's not many tanks that can quite comfortably drive around like that and take an absolute beating like that. Obviously, as is with all the videos like this I put out, the last game will be a match 3 one, but to be honest, it's more of the same thing. Sticking your tank in people's faces and just pulling that trigger button over and over and over to rack up that 45 damage into something more substantial. But again, the same scenario here. I'm going to take an absolute beating, but I'm just going to slowly chip away at the reds for as long as I can before I either die or they die. Obviously it's a mastery replay, so I could still die, but we know they are going to die. Now I've positioned my tank behind this red here, which we've got permatracked, and we are literally just chipping him away while keeping him permatracked. But it means that the Matilda, although it can get shots on me, in theory doesn't have perfectly clear shots because this guy is blocking some of his view. Now he's dealt with though, I'm going to use him to cover the lower plate. I'm going to take out the easiest target first, and then we're going to look at the Matilda. Now I've got the side of the Matilda, and with this gun no APCR is required. I'm hoping to get a track shot by here, but I don't think we have the pen to deal with the tracks and the side armor. Granted, I could use APCR in that circumstance, and I could have kept him permatracked while going through the tracks and the side armor, but to be honest, I like trying to make some credits. So instead what we're going to do is ignore the Matilda for now, because he wasn't focusing us, and we're just going to bully this T-28. You'll see he bounced his first shot off our side. He's penetrating our front then though, which kind of makes me think that he's firing APCR. The T-28 has very good penetration values on its standard gun, but in this circumstance, the fact he started penetrating all of a sudden every single time, he probably switched to the APCR. Nonetheless, T-28 addressed, and there's the Matilda. He is now paying attention to us over here. Now he does have some angle on his side now, which means I will start to struggle with the standard AP. So momentarily you will see I will switch to the APCR to deal with him, but not yet. I want this Su-76. Now you'll see I'm angling and I am wiggling. What I should have done here is side scrape, because regardless of my attempts at angling and wiggling in and out, he does manage to cause more damage to me, which leaves me critically low on health. And it also means, well, he's dead. So it is just a Matilda to deal with on this side, and we are on 4 kills, and I don't know where the Hetzer is. So there is the Matilda, and he's got himself in a pretty bad situation by there. So I'm going to take full advantage of that and just pump him full of APCR. If I had his flat side, I wouldn't need the APCR. The fact he's looking at me, the fact I'm on critically low health, and the fact he has very good armor on that turret, especially around that area I'm shooting at, well, I need my APCR. And I've just hit the adrenaline in, and look at that. Look at that rate of fire, it's outrageous. So again, we're only doing 45 average, but we chipped away at him constantly and very quickly, which then puts us on 5 kills, and there is just a Hetzer left. Now, depending what gun the Hetzer has, well, in fact it doesn't matter. Whatever gun he's got, he has a good chance of one-shotting me. If he has the 75mm, he's more than likely going to penetrate me because of the AP, has good penetration values. If he has the 10.5, he's probably just going to splash damage on me. So instead, what we're going to do is aim for his track. We do miss, but it doesn't matter, he's on critically low health, and it just means we can get these last few shots in and finish him off. So that puts us on 6 kills, and that is the end of the game. We walk away from that one with 1,716 damage, 22,000 credits, and I was hoping we'd get more credits from those missions, but we didn't. But it was still a very good game nonetheless. And if we have a look at the team, again, we did substantially more than the rest of the team. In fact, I think we did around the same as the team combined. Again, that's not saying the team is bad, that's quite simply saying the tank is that good. Especially if you use it in the correct circumstances. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video, guys, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.